Chapter 4 Graven Image. Enkidu rests against a tree, setting Fausto on the ground beside him. After a few minutes, the magician begins to regain consciousness. "What happened?" Fausto whispers. "We survived another attack from the demons." "Were your fears correct? Was your kin responsible?" Enkidu nods slowly. "Did he give you anything to help, or was he unrepentant?" Fausto asks, standing up and using the tree to remain stable. He wished to help. I think he gave us something. I honestly have not taken the time to investigate it." Enkidu replies, handing Fausto the book of the Black Earth. Fausto flips through the pages, scanning for anything helpful. "Why is this book written in Yazitan?" "I do not know. My kin was in possession of it. I do not know from where it was obtained. He used it to open the doorway to the demon world." "Your Yazitan is better than mine, but I believe I can decipher most of the text." "We're going to have to send word to the other cities and call for aid. We must stop the demons here, or they will spread out and consume the entire world." The sun begins to rise. "We've been running from them all night. There's no telling how many people the soldiers have killed in that time," Enkidu whispers. "We cannot afford to think of such things. We must focus on stopping their strongest warriors, then turn to closing the portal." Fausto leads them to the dwelling of the town's other magician, Ismail, and his apprentice, Simeon. They are quickly led into the home of the magician, who casts a concealment spell after they enter, covering the doorway with false trees and shrubs. "Fausto, it is good to see that you are still counted among the living. I have killed dozens of these demons, but it does not seem like there is an end to them. Have you, by chance, located their source?" Ismail asks. "It's somewhere outside the city gates. A portal to the demon world was opened up by his cousin, Yazian," Fausto replies. "The first wave of the demons came by way of the desert after devastating Benares. I do not think Yazian had any control of where the portal opened. The way he reacted, I do not think he even realized what the spell he cast would do," Enkidu says. "Why? Why would anyone do such a thing?" Simeon whispers. "Even if he did know what would happen, he still had to know that it would be bad." "It does not matter," Ismail interrupts, seeing the pain in Enkidu's face. Enkidu nods, still thinking of all the lives that have been stolen because of his meeting of Taraxime. He tries not to feel guilty about it, as he did not know she belonged to another. But guilt sometimes has a habit of not adhering to logic. He wishes he could go back and never have met the Temptress, but he knows that is impossible. Now, he can only fight to prevent any more damage from occurring because of him. "We will need all of our wits about us. Enkidu, can you endure?" Ismail asks. "Yes, I am sorry," Enkidu replies, shaking off his thoughts. "We have encountered their fiercest. There are a handful of officers commanding the lower forces. There were 5 originally, but we have managed to eliminate 2 of them," Fausto says. "We must take out the 3 remaining commanders if we are to gain the breathing room to reach the portal and close it," Ismail says, stroking his long beard. "Speaking of which, do you have any idea how to perform this feat?" Fausto sets the book of the Black Earth on Ismail's study table, beside a candle and several parchments. Ismail investigates the book, and his breath is caught in his throat. Where did you attain this?" he whispers. "It is what my kinsman used to open the portal. He believed that we could also use it to seal the breach," Enkidu declares. Ismail nods, flipping through the pages. I do not know where to even begin. He looks overwhelmed. There is just so much here. There are names and cities that I've never even heard of. I agree with Enkidu's kinsman that the answer to our problem lies somewhere in this book. If a Yazatan spell brought the enemy here, one can also do the reverse, Fausto says. This text is thick. It would take days without rest to read through the entire thing. We can each take a portion and divide the work, Fausto says, tearing the binding and removing handfuls of the book. Enkidu is handed a section of the pages, but he shakes his head. Reading through ancient documents is not my forte. I should be on the battlefield doing what I can do to stop the enemy, not hiding in here. You have faced the demons multiple times and barely escaped with your life. It is best to wait until we have a strategy before facing them again, Fausto cautions. I think I can get a word to a few friends in Jericho and Levant. It will take upwards of a day for a hawk to reach the nearest of them, Ismail says, uncovering a cage containing several special trained, message-carrying birds of prey. It will take several more days for them to arrive. We are looking at having to wait at least 4 days before we can even begin to try and close the portal. Send the messages. I shall do what I can to buy that time, Enkidu says. In the streets of Kataltakuk, the fighting remains fierce. The Sakari push their attack, driving the villagers from their homes in terror. Many are killed, and even more are taken captive. Without something drastic, it seems as though humanity is doomed to lose this war. Those who can fight try to pick up the slack of their neighbors, but there are just far too many of the enemy for them to even the odds. Lianlim leads back, allowing a Sakari sword to pass overhead. The teen swiftly draws her bow and releases a single arrow without aiming through her attacker's throat and pivots, releasing another arrow into the chest of an oncoming enemy. Bodies lie face down in the mud, buried by frantic, trampling feet. Screams echo so loudly through the air that the sounds of clashing swords only inches away cannot be heard. A young man around Lianlim's age is knocked down, blood running from his forehead and into his eyes. The Sakari stands over him, preparing to finish him off with a single downward stab. Lianlim turns, firing an arrow through the Sakari's ear and felling him instantly. "Get off your ass!" Lianlim screams, pulling the teen to his feet. "I do not have the time to protect you and still fight my best." She drops another enemy with an arrow through the eye. "Do you understand?" The boy nods. "I will burden you no more with my weakness." He is ashamed that despite all of his efforts, he is unable to do more against the demonic invaders than the daughter of a stable owner. Lianlim ducks underneath a Sakari blade and drives an arrowhead into the gut of her attacker, taking both of them to the ground. "Get over your self-pity and kill more of these bastards!" she shouts, pulling out her arrow and immediately turning to fire from her bow into the chest of a Sakari that is in mid-sprint towards her. She turns, cursing to herself as she finds her peer dropping to his knees with a sword through his back. She reaches for an arrow behind her back but finds she has run out. The Sakari charges, using his foot to pull his blade free of the dead teen. Lianlim runs forward and slides across the ground, pulling a spent arrow from the corpse of a fallen Sakari and pivoting on her knees to fire the projectile into her enemy's back. The Sakari is able to evade the arrow but collapses only a few steps away from Lianlim. She is confused as to what happened until the Sakari falls to his face, revealing Enkidu standing behind with his sword outstretched. "Keep it up," Enkidu says, encouraging the girl. "If everyone fought as hard as you, we would have won this war already." Saying no more, he runs off to find more Sakari to battle. Lianlim gathers any intact arrows she can find from the dead, and follows, ready to face any more of the Sakari that lie ahead. Still scouring the Book of the Black Earth for information, The human magicians find little help with their current situation. Dozens of chapters and hundreds of pages in, there is no answer to removing the Sakari threat. This book reads as a historical document of events I've never even heard of, Simeon says with frustration. Are we sure this is a legitimate text and not a forgery? I was taught that no city is older than Jericho. But this book speaks of cities going back thousands of years beyond our beliefs. Enkidu's kinsman somehow used a spell from this book to bring the demons here, Fausto says. Surely there is also a spell to send them back. We have looked for hours and are empty-handed, Ismail sighs. Perhaps we were mistaken. Fausto pauses, tearing out a page from the book and handing it to Simeon. This will not take care of our bigger problem, but it may be helpful for eliminating the remaining officers. Take this paper to Yokar and any metal that you can find lying about without coming into conflict with the enemy. Tell him our time is crucial, and ask if he can produce 3 or 4 of the devices described in this text. Simeon nods, running off in a hurry. What is going on? Ismail asks. Did you find something? Designs for a metal disc that is enchanted with a sealing spell. I am certain that we do not have enough metal in the village to contain their entire enemy force. But perhaps we can seal away their strongest, Fausto replies. Chapter 39, verse 3. Iron, nickel, copper. Take these elements in equal ratios and smelt them into a liquid state. Pour the mixture into a circular mold of 8 to 10 perus in diameter. Once cooled, cover the disc with either a silver or golden coating. Chapter 39, verse 4. Carve into the outer shell of these discs the words of power. Obligo, violen, en sopar. Chapter 40, verse 1. The usage of chakram obligo on fellow Yazata is forbidden without a direct order handed down from your choir's arche-general or one of the Sarum princes. Chapter 40, verse 2. The chakram obligo is only as powerful as the spell cast upon it, and the composition of the metals used to make it. If any of the metals are in too high a ratio, the disc will not be able to withstand the magical energy and will break. Chapter 40, verse 3. If the order is given by your choir's arche or a Sarum prince to seal a fellow Yazata in the chakram obligo, the outer shell must be golden in composition and mixed with crushed crystalline diamonds. The inner composition is to have nickel, iron, and silver in equal parts with crushed crystalline diamond mixed in. Chapter 40, verse 4. Be warned that taking up arms against a fellow Yazata without proper authorization is a grave offense. Carve into the chakram obligo's outer shell these words to contain one of the Grigori, Sharukran Akli, in place of violen. Inyana inspects the line of prisoners freshly captured by her soldiers. Many of the captives are young and scared, crying out for parents who were slain trying to protect them. What good are these? Inyana asks, scowling. I want a hardy workforce, not a bunch of sniveling whelps. The adults tend to fight us until the death, and are difficult to capture alive, Hui replies. Give these humans a few years, and we will have a healthy breeding stock. Inyana strikes her top commander across the face. Do not presume to make light of me, Grand General. I am not interested in a sustainable population. The humans can go extinct after I'm through with them for all I care. For now, however, I need strong and healthy humans that can toil to build the new infrastructure that we shall set up here. These huts disgust me. Buildings of metal and cement will soon replace this primitive landscape. Yes, my queen, Hui replies, wiping the line of blood from his nose. I shall make sure the soldiers are more capable in taking prisoners. Why not allow your new loyal subjects to volunteer for your building corps? Ymira asks mockingly. They both glance towards the group of 10 or so humans that have willingly surrendered to the Sicari rather than meet the end of a sword. Inyana spits with disgust. They have no loyalty. Anyone that would betray their own people cannot be trusted. Ymir grinds his teeth in anger and balls his fists tightly, as he recalls his sister's own role in the betrayal and murder of their father. She sees Ymir's reaction and grins. They should all strive to be loyal like you, dear brother, like a well-trained attack dog. Black energy begins to rise off Ymir's body, and he must fight to control his anger and keep it suppressed. Should he act against Inyana or Hui too early, it will surely mean his death. As they dash through the chaotic streets and alleyways, Enkidu and Lianlim encounter Sicari by surprise. For the most part, Enkidu is able to dispatch the invaders quickly before they can utter a single shriek. It is when the Sicari patrol in groups of 2 or more that Lianlim must rush forward with haste to silence any comrades before they can call for their reinforcements. Searching home to home, humans come up empty-handed on locating more survivors. This is the 7th house in a row, Lianlim whispers. Have these monsters killed everyone but us by now? Enkidu shakes his head. If you close your eyes and concentrate carefully, more fighting occurs all around the city. Kataltakuk has not yet given up hope. Neither should you. A Sicari soldier steps into view ahead, and Lianlim reaches behind her for arrows. The girl's hand finds nothing to grasp. Damn! I'm out of arrows. Enkidu throws Tiavan with all of his might, hurling the sacred blade through the enemy's heart. Placing a foot on the corpse's chest, Enkidu reclaims his sword. Can you wield a sword with any proficiency? Lianlim shakes her head. I put all of my training into riding and archery. Enkidu frowns. We currently have access to neither skill. Your father is Bashan, right? Lianlim nods. I will get you to his stables. Stay there and do whatever you can to protect the horses. I have a feeling that we will need them soon if we are going to drive out the demons. Sticking to the shadows, the two make their way towards the rear gates and Bashan's stables. Enkidu knows the Sicari presence will increase nearer the gates. Guards posted to make sure no humans are able to evacuate the city. There are numerous enemy forces outside, Enkidu whispers as they reach the stables. Numerous villagers lie slain on the ground. But the horses still live. Lianlim begins to scream in horror, and Enkidu quickly covers her mouth and pushes the girl up against a wall. Silence! They will hear you. My father, Lianlim whispers in tears as Enkidu removes his hand. Those monsters, they... We have all lost a great deal, Enkidu says. Use that pain as motivation. Show the demons no mercy. Sneaking up on the Sicari guarding the stables, Enkidu is able to grab the nearest and rake his blade across the guard's throat and pull him into the shadows. Another guard turns, thinking he has heard something. As the Sicari investigates, Tiavan emerges from the shadows to pierce his skull. Lianlim gathers the sword of a fallen Sicari and drives the blade up through the ribs of another soldier. Clearing out the enemy occupation, Enkidu and Lianlim secure the stables for a future escape attempt. Guarding this area is on you now. I shall return as soon as I can. Our next priority should be getting riders out of the city to bring help, Enkidu says. Lianlim nods, forcing back her tears and trying to be strong. I will protect this area with my life. Several hours pass, and Enkidu returns to the magicians, covered in blood and grime. He takes a water skin and cleanses his face before drinking the rest. What have you uncovered? Enkidu asks. Quite a bit, but nothing useful to us at the moment, Fausto admits with disappointment. There are many fewer Sakari patrols about, but the main force still exists gathered with their officers. I have secured a route to the stables of Bashan near the rear gates, but I will not be able to clear out the enemies guarding the area alone. We need something more. I do not think that there are enough villagers with the will to fight remaining to defeat the demons. Please, I beg of you to find something that will assist us in this battle. Ismail shouts out with excitement, startling Fausto. The elder man rushes over, wondering what it is his companion has found. "This is it!" Ismail shouts. "I was wrong to ever doubt you, my friend. It really is here." "What?" Fausto asks, looking over his shoulder trying to read the current page that Ismail is studying. "I found the spell that Enkidu's cousin used to open the doorway to the other world, to the place called Averno." "Averno," Fausto whispers, repeating the word. "And does it tell you how to send them back there?" Ismail nods, grinning. "I believe it does." Chapter 77, verse 9. If the pathway to Averno has been opened in error or malice, steps must be taken to quickly close it back. The Sakari are far more ravenous and deadly than humanity can handle. Should the Sakari come over in force, mankind will fall. Chapter 77, verse 10. 3 Yazata of Seraphim rank, or 2 Sangam, can close the portal by simply visualizing the destruction of the spell's symbols and chanting the words, Zavir tu portan chiudete. This shall repair any broken or removed sigils. Chapter 77, verse 11. If Yazata are unable to reach the portal in time, human sages can make do, but a much greater amount of energy will be needed as a catalyst. No fewer than 7 human sages must be present to perform the spell, with one being selected to chant the incantation. This process cannot be interrupted. If the flow of magical energy from the other 6 magicians is stopped before the spell is completed, great danger will be incurred. Chapter 77, verse 12. Attempting to close the doorway without enough mages, or having the process interrupted in any way, will lead to instability in the spell that could result in destruction comparable to the attack of a single potestas. 7? Fausto says aloud. How is this good news? Even if we count your apprentice, our number is still only 3. There are skillful magicians in the cities of Levant and Jericho. I have met with the court magician for the king of Levant before. He is a hefty man with much bravado, but he is incredibly skilled. Refugio would be a great help to us against these Sakari. It is over 3 days' ride to Levant, and even farther to Jericho. I do not think that we can hold out that long. While I did not know the details of the spell at the time, I did have the foresight to request the aid of those cities' magicians. We must try to hold out as long as we can, until whatever aid is en route will arrive. Enkidu draws his sword and heads towards the door. I will challenge the strongest of the enemy forces to a one-on-one duel. That will at least focus the attention of them on me, and away from the villagers. I will not be able to stall for all the time we need, but I might at least be able to take one of their remaining officers down with me. There is no need for that. Foolishly trying to fight them to buy time will only sacrifice your life. We may need you to protect us while we perform the spell to close the portal, so keeping us alive is a priority. Ismail argues. But we have a few options. Fausto, did you see the binding spells detailed out by the Yazata to contain traitors? Those should be strong enough to restrain the Sakari. I did not, Fausto replies, leaning over to look at the book with his peer. He reads a handful of the spells multiple times. Together, the 2 of us should be able to perform one of these more complicated defensive spells. If we can contain them, we might be able to wait out the remainder of the time. Please do so with haste. Every minute we delay, they are out there murdering more innocents, Enkidu says. What if the spells are designed specifically to contain Yazata and will do nothing against the Sakari? Fausto asks. Ismail shrugs. If we do nothing, we will be killed. What alternatives do we have? I will draw the attention of the enemy while you prepare the spell, Enkidu says. If the containment fails, I will do what I can to give us the opening to retreat. Fausto does not bother arguing. It seems we have our plan. There is no room for error, so we must be at the top of our game. Enkidu swings his sword through the air several times. I have spent far too much time in hiding. My blade thirsts for battle. Inyana and her 2 remaining generals walk down the main street, their lower forces still pillaging homes around them. We have searched for hours. They have once again vanished, Hui growls. Inyana has had enough, casting a spell to broadcast her voice loudly over the entire city. Cowards! Because you cannot fight us directly and must hide, we are going to begin killing on a scale you have not yet seen. I will personally kill 100 humans every hour that you do not show yourselves, Inyana screams. Enkidu draws Tiavan and runs towards the door, hearing the Sakari's threat. You cannot go out, not yet, Ismail says, grabbing his arm. We have not decided our plan of attack. Enkidu swats his hand away. I will not have the blood of those innocents on my conscience. Do what you must to prepare. You will find me in the demons when you are ready. Enkidu runs off to challenge the Sakari once more. He has a good heart, but he is very reckless, Ismail sighs. He is young, Fausto replies with a shrug. On our way, I suggest we check on the progress of those chakram obligo. Enkidu reaches the Sakari, sword already outstretched. I knew that would get your attention, Inyana grins. I did not think that one with such sickening honor such as you would allow so much blood to be shed. You creatures have no honor. Inyana lunges at him, slashing horizontally with her claws. Enkidu blocks with his sword, the impact skidding him backwards. Hui leaps from the side, bringing his own sword down across Enkidu's shoulder. Enkidu twists just in time for the blade to graze him, and he punches the Sakari in the side of the face. Inyana thrusts forward, and Enkidu is forced to drop his blade down vertically to block her advance. Yamura stands back, watching the fight and studying Enkidu's movements. Feel free to join in any time, brother, Inyana growls. Yamura folds his arms across his chest. I wish to gain a better understanding of his technique. He has managed to survive our assaults enough times that I must rethink our strategy against him. Inyana manages to rake her claws across Enkidu's left thigh and cheek. He pivots, backhanding her. Inyana staggers back, cradling her nose as it sprays blood. Bastard! She screams, leaping at him with both claws. Inyana hits a wall of pink-colored energy that knocks her to the ground. What is this? She screams, thrashing at the energy, but unable to break through. Ismail, Fausto, and Simeon run up behind Enkidu. It worked, but we do not know for how long. We did not have the time to truly test this barrier out, Ismail says, out of breath. Enkidu thanks them, glad they came to help him instead of allowing more innocents to be killed. They turn to run, but their path is blocked by a wall of flames. Inyana laughs loudly, lowering her hand. Our magic is much older than yours, humans. She grins, punching a hole through the energy barrier and shattering it into millions of tiny shimmers of light. Chains wrap around Inyana's feet and she falls to the ground. Fausto follows up his attack, conjuring a massive fist above the Sakari. The fist drives down into her back, the force swelling out into a crater around her. Fausto pivots, throwing his middle and index fingers of his left hand to his lips. Biasi, Mamam Sham! Fausto quickly chants, conjuring a stone wall to surround the other two powerful Sakari warriors. Before they can leap above the wall, Ismail caps it with the second phase of Fausto's spell. A 14-foot thick stone lid appears over them, sealing the Sakari inside. "Come! That will not hold them!" Ismail shouts. Inyana rises from the crater, violet sparks of energy crackling around her body. "Hilch! Nemuth! Junth!" Inyana growls and begins casting a spell. Enkidu rushes forwards, slashing at Inyana with his sword and forcing her to leap backwards in evasion. "Degna! Thalbot!" Fausto and Ismail shout in unison, putting all of their remaining energy into a powerful barrier spell. A wall of glowing energy seals the street, cutting Inyana and everything behind her off. The wall encircles the other Sakari, so that they all become trapped. Inyana casts spell after spell, trying in vain to remove the enchantment. With each failure, her anger increases. Yamura is amused by his sister's frustration, but his own desire to kill Enkidu and the others fuels his need to break free of the barrier. He sends a group of soldiers to scout the perimeter of their confinement, and remains calm. Losing his nerve like Inyana would only bring disaster to their forces and the army's morale as they look up to him for guidance. "These humans are far more clever than you led us to believe," Yamura says to his sister. "I advised caution, but you would not heed my counsel." Inyana rolls her eyes, sitting down in the middle of the street. "Save your self-righteous bullshit, Yamura. I am not in the mood to put up with your mouth. Is it not the duty of your generals to provide you our strategic advice?" "The humans merely caught us off guard," Hui interrupts. "This is not indicative of their strength as a whole." "Are you fully mad?" Yamura asks with a forced laugh. "We have struggled against a single human and been unable to prevail. He has killed 2 of our generals and made a mockery of the strength we consider elite. The warrior did not trap us with a spell," Inyana speaks up. "Those human mages imprisoned us. You do nothing to disprove my observations. If 2 weaker men with only moderate magical skill could do this to us, what then would occur should we ever run into a truly gifted magician? This is the height of human magic," Inyana argues. "You do not know that. Arrogance is preventing you from considering the humans to be far more formidable than any of us expected." "I absolutely will not concede that point because it is not factual. The skill of this human warrior is an outlier, a singular nuisance. Once we have gotten rid of him, the rest of this world will fall much more easily." Yamura sits down, exhausted from trying to argue with his elder sister. "Again, we do not know this. We cannot just take your hunches for universal truths." "Remember your place, General," Hui cautions. "Inyana may be your sister, but she is also queen and her word is the law." Yamura laughs, drawing both of their ire. "I have not forgotten who pulls at King Marduk's strings. Only a fool would think that imbecile was truly in charge of anything." Many of the soldiers overhear their argument and whispers spread throughout their ranks. "Silence yourself, Yamura, lest I do it for you," Inyana threatens. Folding his arms, the general merely grunts in reply and closes his eyes to rest. "My queen, can you not see the Yazatan symbols in your vision to unravel this crude spellwork?" Hui asks. Focusing only on the arcane, Inyana is indeed able to see the spell's blueprint circling them like a glowing hieroglyphic web. Yet try as she might, she cannot separate the symbols from each other. "Perhaps the field of magic is slightly altered here, similar to the atmosphere," Inyana says, trying to explain away her failure. "It will take me longer to fully adjust to this world before I'm able to manipulate its elements with any mastery." Hui nods and turns towards their tired army. "Use your swords as shovels and begin to dig. If we cannot walk through this barrier, nor are we able to deconstruct it, maybe we can dig underneath it to free ourselves." They are exhausted, Ymir growls. Allow them some rest. They have been battling the humans without ceasing for hours. Hui glares at him. When did you become so soft? They can work in shifts, but time is too valuable for us to just sit by idly and do nothing. If you find this task so important, why do you not show initiative and begin digging yourself? Enough! Inyana screams, tired of their constant arguing. Start digging! All of you! The army complies, and one by one, the tips of their blades plunge into the earth. Inyana glares at Ymir and Hui, prompting the generals too to begin digging. It is of no use, a soldier growls. The magic seeps far into the ground. Inyana walks over to inspect the hole. The energy of the barrier does indeed carry deep into the earth. Keep digging. It cannot go on forever. The elders of Kataltakuk convene in the grove at the center of the city. Comprised of 11 individuals, the elders meet on important matters and set the rules and doctrines for all of Kataltakuk to follow. Currently, 9 members of the elders meet at the small temple shrine within the grove to come to a decision regarding the actions to take against the Sakari invaders. The other 2 elders were killed in their homes, close to the wall. How many of our city guard remain? Asked Kisura, the city potter. Most of our guardsmen were felled in defense of the wall. After the initial breach, we've been unable to stop the advance of the demons through the city. Vingan, the city blacksmith, says. What of Captain Amastus? Is he alive? Tiao, the city's master builder, asks. Rin, the granary trustee, shakes his head slowly. The captain was felled in battle by the female leader of the invaders, shortly after we lost control of the wall. But do we still have enough of the guard to prevail? Tiao asks. A guardsman with bandages wrapped around his head and ribs speaks up. Too few remain to hold the city. Once the wall was breached, and Captain Amastus was felled, we were quickly overwhelmed. I do not believe any are left in any better condition than I. What kind of total losses are we looking at so far? Vingan asks. Many homes have been ravaged by the demons. I would presume that nearly everyone that is put in their path is no longer among the living, Yao says. The longer we collect data before making the decision, the more death those creatures will spread. We know nothing about our enemy, Rin says. We do not know where they come from, or what they even want. It's clear what they want, Vingan shouts. They want us to die. Are there none who can still stand up to defend our city from this threat? Tiao asks, his voice full of terror. Enkidu Hyalura still fights, Tannen, the city baker, replies. His will has not yet left him. Enkidu will not abandon us so long as he draws breath. Not even Enkidu can stand up to this army. Our city is doomed and we are bound for servitude, Damask, the city purser, argues. Or death. Have you not seen him in battle? He has already slain 2 of their officers and scores of their other soldiers. Our efforts must focus around supporting Enkidu and ensuring his success, Tannen says. Tannen, your bias on this matter clouds your counsel, Tiao says. Sam Hyalura was your friend, and his son is close with your family. I agree with Damask that Enkidu stands no chance against this immense threat. Who would you send to fight them? Tannen asks. Kataltakuk houses no warrior greater than Enkidu. What of the magicians Fausto and Ismail? Vingan laughs. Fausto is not dependable. He is a drunkard and a failed priest. I saw him set 2 of the demons ablaze with a mere word, Rin argues. I do believe his magic's to be real. I too have seen him risking his life to fight the invaders. He is also with Enkidu. Oos, the town planner, adds. Perhaps the two of them together could stop this threat with our support. You are living in a fantasy, Tiao shouts. Two men cannot defeat an army. I do not intend to stand idle, Tannen says. I shall find a sword amongst the slain to defend my home. If we all do our part, we can prevail. We already tried that once, Tiao shouts. Every able-bodied man was gathered to defend the gate, and it still fell. Because cowards like you ran to leave the captain and his guard to be overwhelmed and slaughtered like livestock. We must agree on a course of action, Damask interrupts. How do we know that the invaders are not a civil people and cannot be negotiated with? If they require resources, maybe we can reason a barter with them. If we can stop the violence, we must try. They are not people at all, Tannen shouts. Have you not seen them yourself? Their skin is unnatural. They have teeth and claws like wild beasts. Not all peoples are the same. The Nanimbians and the Ak are as black as the night sky. The Zhangshang's eyes are not like ours, and they are of a much smaller build. The Rephaim are giants and cannibals. Maybe these invaders are from the farthest edges of the world, Damask says. Several of the other elders and prominent community leaders consider this. We must gather all the gold and valuables in the city and make a peace offering. The invaders will see our gesture, and that we can be allies. Maybe then we can stop this meaningless violence. I cannot believe what I am hearing, Enkidu shouts, bursting into the temple. You intend to reward the demons with gold and jewelry for killing our people and burning our homes? Do you or your drunken companion have anything to offer of use? Damask asks. I wish we were drunk right now, and all of this was a hallucination. This nightmare is unfortunately all too real. Fausto and I have been lucky enough to fight against many of these creatures and survive. Our enemy is organized and disciplined. They will take your gift and behead you with smiles on their faces. What you say is conjecture, Damask argues. We do not know for sure that they are not reasonable beings. The demons represent a culture as advanced, if not more so, than our own. These are not mindless beasts. These are members of a military occupational force, utilizing tactics and strategy we have never before seen. More panic spreads throughout the villagers gathered together with the elders for safety. We do not have our own army. How can we defend against an army? Could an entire civilization of these creatures have remained hidden in the wilderness all this time without ever being discovered? Zhao asks. That is unlikely, Damask says. Wherever the demons originate, it cannot be from anywhere nearby. They come from another world, Enkidu says. Before they attacked, I saw strange clouds in the sky, and the air tasted of black magic. Damask scoffs. Magic? If it is magic, then why have the priests not ended whatever horror has unleashed these monsters? Despite his flaws, Fausto's abilities as a magician are above reproach, Tannen says. Have you discovered the source of the demons? When I first returned from Dwarka, the foul aura was the strongest at the home of my kinsman Yassian, Enkidu says. If that wretch is responsible, hang him from the highest tree you can find. He has damned us all, Damask shouts. That will not be necessary, Enkidu says with a heavy heart. Yassian has already been killed by the demons. The demons attacked us from the southwest, coming from the direction of Benares and Ayodhya. We should send our fastest riders out to Muria, Samsara, and Naya, the wounded guardsman says. There will most likely be many demons waiting outside our walls to pick off any who attempt to flee, Enkidu counters. Would you have us stand by and do nothing? Damask asks angrily. We cannot rely on you or that drunken sot to save us. I am not asking you to rely on any man, Enkidu challenges. Each of us must stand on our own 2 feet and fight back. I shall gather whomever I can and thin the enemy numbers. We will provide support for the messengers, but all of you must do your part to keep each other safe. We cannot abandon our fellow man in this time of dire need. We will all do what we can, Tannen says. Pray for the survival of our people. I have never ceased in my prayers for this city. Enkidu leaves the elders and the other villagers to discuss matters further, while he prepares to send messengers out to Kataltakuk's closest neighboring cities. Arms folded across her chest, Inyana taps her claws against her forearm impatiently. It has been hours, the Sakari Queen growls. Are you no closer to getting us free of this prison? Ymura looks up at her, rolling his eyes. You are the priestess. Why do you not break the spell down yourself? Inyana exhales sharply. I have been trying. The spell symbols are foreign to me, and too finely woven together for me to find a weakness to exploit. Ymura chuckles. Do you still think the humans are not a valid threat? This is your fault, Inyana screams. Had you not been holding back to prove a point, this city would already have fallen. I am as weak to magic as anyone else, Ymura says. Regardless of my enthusiasm, this barrier would still keep me contained. Had you unleashed your full power from the onset, this city would be rubble. The magicians would not have gotten this opportunity. The same can still be said of you, sister. Last I checked, your power exceeded my own. Inyana grows irate. It is not my job to take this city. My role in this endeavor was to serve as a unifying force and symbol for our army, a symbol of fear to the humans. I wanted the humans to know that I am the reason for their suffering. Your ego is unparalleled. Ymura bursts into full-on laughter. You accuse me of sloth, but your pride has doomed us all to sit by idly within this prison while the humans have added time to strategize. The humans could have 1,000 years to strategize, and it would not be sufficient, Hui adds, joining the conversation and tossing his makeshift shovel aside. They merely got lucky catching us like this. You are no better than her, Ymura growls. At every turn you underestimate our foes. If I were not by your side, you would not have even survived Kulnak. Hui draws his sword in anger. Kulnak would have been a complete failure were it not for my leadership. You would have shown mercy on those rebels and spared their lives only for them to gain allies and challenge us with greater force. Ymura stands, his own hand resting upon the hilt of his sword. Do not dare draw upon me, unless you are prepared to die, Grand General. Hearing Ymura's mocking tone linger on his title, Hui prepares to attack when he is suddenly stopped by Inyana. Enough! She shouts. You are like children! Hui sheathes his sword. You owe your life to your sister. And Inyana will not always be around to protect you, Ymura growls. Before he can continue, he is silenced by Inyana. Both of you are teetering upon words of treason. Neither of you will raise a hand against the other. Do you understand? Ymura complies. Even if he believes he could take on either of them individually, he knows for sure that he would stand no chance of defeating them together. Can we count on the next regiment breaking the spell when they arrive? General Asaku is instructed to hold his position until a full lunar rotation has passed since our departure, Inyana explains. Since we have been here roughly a day, we likely still have several more hours before they even consider moving out. And we have no way of sending a message out to them, Hui adds with frustration. If you were to cast an even stronger spell that required the drawing of more energy, could you pull from the barrier in order to weaken it? Ymura asks. Inyana shakes her head. Various spells are set in such a way that the composing elements no longer remain static. The only way to disrupt this spell, short of incapacitating or killing its caster, would be to generate a force exceeding the energy used to cast it. The three of us attacking in unison should produce more power than any human sage, Mura says. Do you not agree? Inyana nods. It is worth a try. I cannot tolerate standing idle by any longer. Striking as one, the Sakari caused the barrier to shake violently. Instantly, feeling the feedback of their spell being damaged, both Fausto and Ismail know that time is running out. Enkidu looks out beyond Bashan's stables as the 10 men and women he has chosen as the city's fastest and most capable riders get ready for the most dangerous journey of their lives. He knows that many, if not all of them, will likely never return to see their homes. Try and spread yourselves out as soon as possible and push your horses to use their full speed from the onset. We cannot have their archers having the time to pick their targets out of a large grouping, Enkidu warns. The riders are nervous, fumbling to load their horses with the minimal provisions necessary to reach their destinations. To maximize speed, no leather saddles are used, and the riders wear only simple cloth and no extra protective armors. The arrows that will soon be assailing them will not encounter any resistance if they strike. Can you not take the enemy out before we are out in the open? Lianlim asks. Despite being sought by many of Katal'Takuk's bachelors, Lianlim's interests lie only in two things: archery and horse riding. She has no time for love or starting a family, and as such, she is the city's speediest rider. I cannot see their archers from their hidden positions within the forest. The only way we are going to find them will be to provide them with targets. A thin, stable boy named Ephron freezes in horror. Some of us are just going to be fodder, right? Enkidu nods sadly. Everyone must try to break through, but it will be unavoidable for us to not suffer any casualties. A muscular cavalryman for the city guard named Salinger laughs. Pray that you can outride me, boy. I shall be the first to breach their line. This is not some competition of your manliness, Lianlim growls. The fate of our city rests upon us reaching the neighboring peoples and bringing them to aid. Salinger only laughs louder. Your manliness is never in question, Lianlim. The young woman smiles confidently. So long as you know your place behind me. Another 15 villagers stand on either side of the rear gates, awaiting Enkidu's signal. As soon as the riders pass, the villagers will watch the trees for activity and attempt to snipe the enemy archers from their hidden positions. The city's provisions for war are slim, and most of the arrows are crude workings made in haste. Enkidu is unsure if the tips of the arrowheads will even be able to penetrate the superior Sakari armor. It is time, Enkidu says. May the blessings of the Creator of all protect you and guide each of you back home safely. Lianlim slings a pack of arrows onto her back before grabbing her bow and mounting her horse. You must focus on riding, not shooting, Enkidu warns her, urging the young woman to leave her weapon behind. Lianlim refuses. I am a better shot than anyone you have at our backs. I will feel safer clearing my own path. Given the signal, the gates are open and the riders rush forth. Not seconds after emerging, one of the lead riders is felled by an arrow through his right eye. Lianlim quickly knocks an arrow and looses it into the darkness. An inhuman screech results, and she gives Enkidu a quick glance back with an air of cockiness. The other villagers take up positions outside the city walls, firing arrows almost blindly into the trees. The Sakari snipers fell many, striking men down, screaming and maimed. Enkidu charges the enemy atop Kiates, rushing headlong into the danger. Another rider is toppled from his horse, and several arrows are buried deeply into his chest. Screaming, Enkidu spurs the remaining riders onward. Arrows fill the air like deadly rain, stabbing into the ground all around them. Salinger's horse collapses with multiple arrows in her, throwing the man to the dirt. Groaning with pain, Salinger quickly dives behind his wounded horse for cover, as it struggles to move with even more arrows buried into its flesh. "It appears you will win this race, Lanlem," Salinger shouts, arrows whirring past his face. Lanlem leans to the left, firing another arrow into a sniper in the dark. "That was never in doubt. I should have chosen a sturdier horse," Salinger laughs. Blood stains the man's teeth, as 2 arrows have become embedded in his own chest. Drawing his sword, Salinger screams with fury and charges towards the trees. He knows that the injuries he has suffered cannot be recovered from, and chooses to give his final moments towards buying his fellow riders a better opportunity at survival. He nearly reaches the tree line before a 5th arrow brings him down for good. Ephron and an older man named Sepre lead the way, breaching the tree line and entering the open path towards the grasslands leading to Muria. Another rider makes it past just as the Mucritius, owner of the city's other stables, is dropped by an arrow through his neck. Lanlem swings her legs over the side of her horse and leans back, firing an arrow through the heart of the sniper. Multiple arrows bury themselves within the front of Kiades, and Enkidu is forced to make a split decision. He reaches the trees and dives from his injured horse, bearing his sword into the chest of a Sakari archer. "Ride for Kataltakuk! Ride for your loved ones!" he screams as the last of the riders pass successfully. Enkidu runs along the firing line, using the trees as cover to deflect most of the arrows of the frightened archers. As snipers, the Sakari archers are less skilled in swordplay than their fellows, and the warrior priest is able to easily make short work of them and work towards securing the city's rear gate. Enkidu hacks through the Sakari with savage abandon, taking out his anger and sadness on the enemy. With the path cleared, the other villagers drop their bows and take up spears and other makeshift weapons to join in the attack. Picking up the blades of the fallen Sakari, the villagers of Kataltakuk are able to overwhelm the enemy force and remove their presence from the city's rear gate. Enkidu returns to the side of his horse, looking down in sadness at his long faithful companion. Kiades has already stopped breathing, 7 arrows embedded deep within the equine's chest. Kneeling beside the animal, Enkidu gently strokes Kiades' velvety nose. He knows that there is no time for mourning, and quickly unstraps his gear from the steed. The villagers around him are busy looting the dead of their weapons and armor. "Return to the city and begin evacuating everyone through this gate. Go home to home and search carefully for women and children in hiding," Enkidu shouts. "Where will we go?" a man asks, taking a long sword from a dead Sakari and tossing aside his crude pike. "Hide the young and the old in the hills and return here to fight. We must not give up hope that our city can still be saved," Enkidu answers. He suddenly feels the concussion of another coordinated attack on the barrier by the Sakari commanding officers. "Hurry, before the demons retake this exit and we lose our opportunity for flight." At Ismail's home, he and his apprentice Simeon are joined by Fausto. Together, they scour every book and scroll in the dwelling, trying to come across some spell or incantation that would prove more useful against the Sakari. "The barrier will not hold out much longer," Fausto says, breathing heavily. "We must have a plan in motion before the spell breaks." "What about this one?" Simeon asks, holding out a faded parchment. Taking the parchment, Ismail frowns. "No, that will not do either. That spell requires much preparation, and we lack the ingredients. We must focus on command spellcraft, and not apothecary spells." "Oh, here's a way to boost the range and effectiveness of Aginestra," Fausto says, sounding hopeful. "Oh, never mind. We would need the blood of a dragon," he adds with disappointment, closing the book. "Alas, I've never seen a dragon. The chances of happening upon one within our city are very slim," Ismail says, "if they are even real." If we could get one of the invaders' bodies, I have found a recipe that can create a deadly poison specific to a single creature's blood, Simeon says. That should not be difficult, Ismail says. There are many of their dead lying about. I will go to retrieve one with your leave, master, Simeon says. Ismail nods. Stay away from the barrier in the event that the spell fades and the creatures are released. You cannot count on that barrier holding much longer, Fausto says. It is a strong spell, made even stronger by our dual casting, but it will fade in time. This I know, Ismail says sadly. Unfortunately, my studies have never been focused upon combat situations. I cast spells to help our harvests and protect infants and the unborn. The barrier spell is the extent of my more complicated spellcraft knowledge. I once knew more, but my drinking has robbed me of much. Fausto regrets many of the choices he has made since leaving his position as a priest. If he had remained faithful and diligent in his studies, he would have been more of use in this crisis. We cannot dwell in regret, my friend, Enkidu says, entering the home. Right now, we must focus on defeating our enemies and saving this city. His body is covered in thick grime. Deep cuts and gashes line his arms and chest. You have been in battle, Fausto observes, concerned. Has the barrier fallen? No. I encountered many of the creatures while protecting our riders headed out to bring us aid from Muria, Samsara, and Naya. Enkidu pauses, balling his fists and clenching his jaw in hatred. Damn these monsters. Fausto comforts him with a pat on the shoulder. Do not become consumed by anger. We shall endure this, my young friend. Enkidu nods. They eat our bodies like ghouls, but they speak and think like us. I do not understand how they are capable of such evil. How bleak is it out there? Simeon asks, worried about the people of his city. The villagers continue to fight, but the elders are stubbornly refusing to cooperate. Enkidu says, I have tried pleading with them, but they are determined to placate the demons rather than continue battling. They are not warriors, and do not know how to handle the pressures of war. Rest for a bit, Fausto says, returning to the books. You will need your strength very soon. We have cleared the rear gates of enemy forces for now, and I have instructed those who survived our attack to begin the evacuation efforts. The enemy was numerous, and I barely escaped with my life. Only 7 of our riders were successful in breaking through their formation. Once we rejoin the battle, we will focus our efforts primarily on eliminating any portion of the enemy seeking to retake the rear gates before the barrier falls and they are able to rejoin the main force, Fausto says. Whatever we do, it must be done soon. I cannot think that an enemy army so well organized would not have reinforcements en route, Ismail says. We shall all pray for the survival of this city and do what we can to protect it, Fausto says. Ismail, where is your well? Enkidu asks, stripping off his soiled tunic. I must first wash up. Beyond my home, there is a small hill. It is a modest well shared by many families. Enkidu thanks him, exiting the home once more. This spell can enhance one's strength and speed, Fausto says, finding another old parchment. It is a simple command spell, and the symbols are not difficult to visualize. We will need that if we are to face those creatures again. Enkidu could benefit from such boosting. Fausto agrees. He is already on an equal level with their commanders. With enhancement spells, he may be able to engage multiples of them at once. Keep searching. We will need much more. Now that the city guard has fallen, we are the only defenders of Katal Takuk right now. May the Creator bless us with victory. 41 hours into the invasion of Kataltakuk by the Sakari. Ymura paces back and forth behind the energy barrier. It has been nearly 2 days since we arrived in this city. We must end this foolishness, Ymura growls. If they have somehow managed to get a messenger out of this city beneath our notice, human reinforcements from the other regions could already be on their way. Not a single soul has or will escape this city alive. It will be their collective tomb, Hui argues. You cannot be so sure. We have already encountered a human that can hide his presence from our detection. It is nearly a certainty that there would be others capable of a similar feat. Enough! Our inability to kill these pests has us on edge. We should direct our anger and frustration solely on the humans, Nyan interrupts. The Sakari hear a lot of noise up the street. The sounds of many footsteps fall behind the sound of something heavy on wheels being pushed. In this time, it seems they believe they have developed something to destroy us, Hui whispers. It may be reinforcements come from another settlement to give the city aid. Hui scoffs, dismissing Ymura's words. No one is coming to help. The humans are cowards that care only for their own lives. They will not make such a sacrifice as to come to the aid of a neighbor. I have seen several birds coming and going from the city. They could be using them to carry messages. How absurd! It is not uncommon to see birds in a city. Stop being paranoid. The humans are not that resourceful. They are cowering in fear and hoping that we do not find them. They have no secret plan against us. Ymura storms off alone. You can continue to keep your mind closed to the possibility that you are wrong. I, however, am going to investigate the birds, Ymura replies with a growl. Fausto looks up at the sky impatiently. He hopes to see the messenger hawks returning, but does not. We should have received a message by now. They must have been lost or ignored, Fausto says, concerned, as it has been over 24 hours since they sent the hawks, and places Sakari behind an energy barrier. If that is true, what are our alternative options? Enkidu asks. We do not know how much longer the barrier will last. It could be 10 days or 10 minutes or anywhere in between. It has bought us time, but without the aid of the other magicians, we will be unable to permanently contain them. Can we somehow isolate them? Increase our chances of taking them out one by one? Simeon asks. It is possible. We have seen that they have an understanding of magic as well. Having already encountered our barrier spell once, they may be able to counter anything similar to it a second time, Fausto says. We cannot lose faith. We will defeat them and save the city, Enkidu says. They hear the sounds of footsteps and something heavy being pushed on a cart. Fausto looks out of the window and gasps in horror. We have another problem, he whispers. The others run outside to see dozens of their fellow citizens, pushing a cart, carrying a giant golden statue. Having melted down all of the city's gold, they have created an idol in the likeness of Inyana. It has become very obvious to everyone that she is in charge of the other invaders, so the villagers have decided to make an offering to her and hope that she will spare their city. What are you fools doing? Enkidu screams. We are saving Kataltakuk. The demons will surely spare us if we devote our allegiance to them. And Enkidu recognizes as a city elder replies. This is the extent of your wisdom as an elder? We will lose our protection from the one true God. our city will be destroyed for sure. Then the demons will protect us from his wrath. He allowed the demons into the city and to begin killing us. Where has his protection been? He has kept me and my allies alive so we may fight on your behalf. Do not do this. We still have a plan to stop them. Enkidu reaches for the city elder, but another man strikes him in the chest with a wooden pole. He falls back, unable to stop the people as they continue on their purpose. Enkidu, you must stop them. I have been given a message from the Seraphim. If Gatal should worship the likeness of the invaders, my aid to you must immediately cease. The entire city will perish, and I will be unable to lift a finger to save you against the Creator's decree, Doyle says suddenly. Enkidu is gripped with terror and disbelief. They are only seconds away from becoming abandoned to die at the hands of the Sicarii. At this point, faith has been all that's been keeping him going and believing in their success. Fausto, we must go, Enkidu shouts, running after the group. The idol procession reaches the part of the street that the Sicarii are unable to pass. Damask begins to walk forwards on behalf of the other elders. Mighty demons, we do not wish to harm you. Our fear comes from our inability to embrace the unknown. Please allow us to become your servants and spare us our quaint lives, Damask says, falling to his knees and lowering his head. This action signals the others of the group to do the same. Why do you get a statue? Hui asks Inyana, irritated. They must recognize my greatness, she smiles. We shall spare you, only if you bring to us the warrior Enkidu and his magician companions. We will do this, my lady, Damask replies. Enkidu and Fausto run down the street, but come to a stop as they see the others are bowing before the Sicarii. No. We are too late, Enkidu whispers in horror. Voices shout out from the crowd as they stand back up and begin to disperse. There they are! Get them! Bring them to our lords! Kill them! Kill Enkidu and Fausto! Fausto looks over at Enkidu, fear and disgust in his expression. This is not good, he whispers. Those fools, they have doomed us all. Fausto tugs at Enkidu's arm as the villagers run towards them. We must go. They have lost all reason, Fausto says. We cannot abandon the people here by running away just to go formulate another plan, Enkidu says adamantly. If we can stop the Sicarii, we can at least save whoever remains. If we are killed, we can save none. Weigh that burden, Enkidu. Enkidu balls his fists in anger, knowing the truth of Fausto's words. They flee into the alleys, trying to evade their pursuers. A hawk screams overhead, circling, as if searching for something. A sign from one of the other magicians, Fausto shouts in relief. The hawk begins to descend towards its home. Fausto and Enkidu race back towards Ismail's, closely pursued by the Sicarii and the defected villagers. We must hurry, Fausto shouts. If aid soon comes, there is still hope for us all.